This is the fourth video in our series on fragments. In our last video, what we saw is that we could use a callback to pass a unique identifier from a list fragment up to the managing activity that manages that fragment. That was video number 3. This is number 4. So at this point, we have a global unique identifier, which is getting passed up from our list activity. Here's our list activity. And that global unique identifier will allow us to go to a web page that's unique for that plant. You see, all we need is that global unique identifier. So plant number 119 is I believe that was a forest pansy redbud. See, it says forest pansy redbud. And then plant number 83 is an eastern redbud. So you see, that unique identifier that we've passed up is all we need to load a web page. Now, I'll just quickly reiterate what I said in that last video. If you have a lot of detailed content, think about making a mobile app that takes advantage of what the mobile app has on board. The GPS, the camera, it's always with the user, things like that. But as soon as you get to detail, if you can assume that the user is going to be online, it might be worthwhile to go directly to a web page for several reasons. One is you use that same web page across several different mobile apps. Another is, and this is not really official, but in practice, mobile advertisements tend to pay less than web-based advertisements. And if you're viewing a web page through a browser on a mobile app, then clicking on that ad is essentially a web ad, so you get a little bit more revenue that way. So that's something to think about. Okay, so at this point I have a unique identifier and I am in the managing activity, and what I need to do is I need to render a WebView activity. Well, first I need to make the WebView activity. So I'm going to go to my UI package, I'm going to say new, and I'm going to say class. And the Java class comes up, and I'm going to say plant detail web view, something like that, or let's say plant detail fragment. That's good enough. We don't need to say that it's a web view. Superclass, I'm going to look for WebViewFragment. Take a look right here, WebViewFragment. So this is a fragment that's just specially tuned for a web view. You know, keep these things in mind, that the preferences fragment, the list fragment, the WebView fragment, these specially tuned fragments can save you a lot of time over making your own layout, doing it all yourself. I choose finish, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say on create view. Again, with Eclipse, I can start typing a method that I want to override. Hold Control, hit space, choose enter, and it will implement that method. I'm going to hold Control, press M, so we can see this in higher definition. And now what I'm going to do after the super call is I'm going to say on, I want to say get WebView. That's what I want, get WebView. Okay, Control press 1, assign statement to new local variable. Just give me something to work with here. Okay. Now I have things a little bit out of order here because I have a return statement up above, so I'm going to refactor this a bit. I'm going to say Control 1, assign statement to new local variable. Okay, that's good. And we're going to say view, we'll just call it view, how about that? View, okay. Okay, and enter to accept the proposal, and then at the bottom I'll say return view. Okay, and there we go. Okay. Do a little housekeeping here, clean up some excess lines. Now that I have the web view, what I can do is I can say web view, and then I can say .set URL. Whoops. Sorry, make that load URL. Okay. And for the URL, well, if you remember from this page, part of this is going to be static. Everything I have highlighted now is going to be static. It's only that global unique identifier that changes. So I'm going to say load URL, and I'm going to paste, and then I'm going to add that GUID. Wait a minute. Okay. Where am I going to get the GUID though? Remember, that's in this calling activity. So we're going to have a way to get from the activity to our web view, because this GUID right now is undefined. While I'm here though, we'll get there in just a second. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to use JavaScript. It'll take just a second. WebView.getSettings.set JavaScript enabled. By default, the internal web browser does not enable JavaScript. We just have to tell it, okay, go ahead and enable JavaScript, and we're good. Okay, so we have a fragment now, a very simple fragment. What we need to do is we need to go from, and we know that's redlining, we'll take care of that in just a moment. We want to go from our plant results manager, we will need to take this GUID, and we need to invoke that fragment. Now I need a bit of control over this process because I am passing the unique identifier from the plant results manager to this web view. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to make a new layout, and I'm going to call it new. I know this is a bit off screen. Android XML file. And we are going to say layout, and we'll say plant detail fragment, if that makes sense. And we are going to make it a let's see, a frame layout. That'll work. And I'll choose next and finish. Just a simple frame layout. Okay, disconnect from the debugger. And I'm going to say Android ID equals, make that a and ID equals plus. Okay, we'll do plus ID. And we'll just say plant detail web view. That'll work. Plus ID plant detail web view, and then terminate this open tag and save. Now what we'll do is we'll make an activity associated with this layout, and then that activity will instantiate our WebViewFragment and place it inside this layout. So I go back to my UI package, I say new and then class, and we will say plant detail manager. And for the superclass, we'll simply say activity and finish. Okay, I will override the onCreate method by simply typing onCRE and then control space and enter. Do a little housekeeping, and then I'm going to say if, and we'll say saved instance state equal null, which just means that we're in here for the first time. This is not being called as the result of changing resolution. I also want to set my layout by calling set content view. Because I'm calling an inherited method, I can start typing it, hit enter, it will figure out the rest. r.layout.plant detail fragment, that'll work, terminate with a semicolon. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to instantiate our plant detail fragment. Okay, plant detail fragment PDF equals new plant detail fragment. Okay, and then we will say get fragment manager, and that's a method we're inheriting, so we can just control space to auto-complete that. And then we are going to say begin transaction. Once we've done a begin transaction, control 1, assign statement to new local variable, we'll call that transaction, that's fine, and fragment transaction is fine. Control M. What this will do is this will allow us to swap a new fragment into the location that we identified in our layout. So I'm going to say transaction.add, and be careful here. We want to choose the second. Parameter here. I'm going to say r.id. Okay, lots of IDs here, but you remember the ID that I defined in my layout? It was plant detail web view, and then the fragment is going to be the PDF, the variable defined above. And then finally we're going to say transaction.commit. Okay, so I'll say swap the fragment. Just a few pieces left to go because we still have not passed that global unique identifier into our fragment. We have to get the global unique identifier into this activity first, and we have to walk over to this activity as well. So I'm going to control M, and I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to go to Android manifest. I need to add this activity to the manifest. Control M will definitely help on this screen. Lots of things going on here. Scroll down, add activity, okay, and browse, and we called that plant plant detail manager. Yeah, that's it, plant detail manager, and save. So we've added it to the manifest, Control M. Okay, and so now I'm going to go up and I'm going to say plant detail. Let's see, we have the plant results manager and the plant detail manager. Okay, plant results manager. Finally, we're back to this method where we left off a while ago. In here, I'm going to invoke the details with an explicit intent. So I'm going to say intent equals new intent, and I'm going to say plant details manager dot class, and I need to pass into this too, don't I? So this comma plant details manager dot class, Control Shift O. Looks like I might have misspelled plant details manager. Plant detail manager. Okay, singular. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say intent dot put extra. So put extra is how I pass data from one activity to another. I will say GUID, comma, and then GUID. Okay, and then start activity intent. Okay, now I don't like having a, well, first of all, I'll do a little cleanup here. I no longer need that dummy line. I don't like having a string literal, so I'm going to Control 1, and I'm going to say extract to constant. Constant, GUID2 is fine. I must have GUID defined somewhere else. Okay, that's fine. We'll go ahead and choose Enter. That's fine. And save. So this is the Plant Results Manager. This is what's showing that list of results. Now I'm going to go to the Plant Details Manager. I'm going to pull this GUID back out based on this unique identifier right here called GUID2. Okay, Control Shift R, Plant Details Manager, Detail Manager. I'll keep calling it Details. Okay, and now what I'm going to say is, okay, I'm going to say get intent dot get int extra. Note I have to say get int extra because I'm telling it that I want to pull an int out because I put an int in. So get int extra. Okay, the name plant results manager dot GUID2. You see I'm using that constant that I defined before to make sure I don't have a spelling error. Default value, we'll just put maybe 1. We shouldn't need the default value. Okay, now finally I get to take this value and I get to pass it down to the fragment. So I've declared the fragment, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to say, well, let's see, I'll put some more comments here. Get the GUID from the calling activity, and then we'll say pass the GUID to the fragment. Okay. So I'm going to say PDF. Well, no, I'll say bundle extras equals new bundle. Okay. Oops. And then we're going to say extras dot put int key. You know, I mean, we could reuse that same key from before. So I can say plant results manager dot GUID2. That's fine. Value is going to be our, ooh, I never saved that GUID, did I? Okay, GUID. We'll just put a little placeholder there. Okay, sorry, let me go up here. Control 1, assign statement to new local variable. We'll call this GUID, like so. There we go, we connect the dots. Okay. And so I'm going to say now PDF dot set arguments extras. And so that's how we pass a bundle of data into a fragment. Okay, pass the GUID ID to the fragment and save. Finally now, let's go back to our fragment. And in our fragment, in our create view here, I'm going to say get arguments. Oops, no, not get activity, get arguments. Okay, Control 1, assign statement to new local variable, bundle arguments equals get arguments. Arguments dot get int, we pass in the key, plant results activity. I'm sorry, plant results manager. GUID 2. Okay. Control 1, assign statement to new local variable, GUID. And finally, we know we have no red lines, we connect the dots. Okay. So I save, and I'll put a comment here. I'll say get the GUID from the managing activity. Okay, and I'll say open the web view to the correct page. And I'm going to snap a breakpoint here so we can watch and see how things go. One small change I do want to make to the URL. I put something on this web page where if you say and source equals mobile, watch what's going to happen when I hit enter. Take a look at the top nav and the side nav. That's going to really get in the way if we're looking at a mobile view like this. You see, it's going to look very crowded. So at source equals mobile is going to apply a different CSS, a different cascading style sheet. That style sheet's going to take away that nav because that nav really doesn't matter in a detail view. It's not perfect for a mobile phone, but it's a lot better than having that nav there. So what I'm going to do is on my URL here, I'm going to say, after GUID, I'm going to say plus, and then ampersand source equals mobile, just to tell it to use the mobile look and feel, and save. Okay, so carefully now, breakpoint in the fragment, we got that. Okay, and then we're going to put a breakpoint in the, let's see, we already have a breakpoint in the plant results manager. We have a breakpoint where we're calling this plant selected. Looks like we maybe need to realign that one a little bit, but nonetheless it does exist. We have a breakpoint in the plant results fragment. Uh-oh, give that just a second to resync here. Okay, in the plant results fragment on the on list item click, and the plant results manager, looks like we have that guy realigned. Plant detail manager, I'm going to snap a breakpoint on the set content view. So this is the one that's managing the detail fragment. And then finally, the plant detail fragment. Now, I will, if you're curious, hey, boy, I lost you somewhere, I will commit all of this to GitHub, and I will put that GitHub, I will put the GitHub notes in, or the link rather, in the YouTube video click. So let me debug as Android application. I'm going to go ahead and choose my phone again, and let's watch carefully as we walk through each of these breakpoints. I know that was a lot of handing off, that was a lot of different classes we looked at, but let's watch carefully as it loads. I'll pause because it might take just a moment. Okay, and it's loaded. So I click in the search, I say red bud, and I'm going to choose search, and this will take us to the results page. Okay, we'll stick with our friend the Cercis canadensis eastern redbud. I'll move the Android emulator out of the view now so we can look at the debugger. Okay, first of all, remember I clicked on Cercis canadensis eastern redbud, so we should see a plant here called Cercis canadensis eastern redbud with a GUID of 83, and again that is the live plant places GUID because we are looking at live data here. We're looking at a JSON feed of data that we're displaying in a fragment. So we go up to the managing activity, we pass it this GUID. The managing activity is our plant results manager, and we see that it's going to get the GUID, which again is 83. It's going to bundle that up and it's going to call a different activity. It's going to call the detail activity. So I'll play. The detail activity, okay, we're going to associate a layout to that, and we are going to instantiate the plant detail fragment. We're going to grab that global unique identifier of 83, we're going to pass it into the fragment as an extra, and then we are going to start the fragment, and we are going to add the fragment to the transaction. I'll go ahead and resume here. The fragment, we get the onCreate view, we get the arguments, and we get the GUID, and guess what? The GUID is still 83. Now it's going to assemble this URL. I'm going to highlight. Nice thing about Eclipse is in the debugger you can highlight something, Control-Shift-I, and it will evaluate that. So it's going to evaluate this expression, which is this URL here. Okay, I'm going to grab that and I'm going to put it in a new tab in Chrome, Control-V. and we should see our mobile formatted UI, and we do. Okay, so we're going to tell the WebView to load this and then tell it to enable JavaScript. Now I will say the emulator is a little bit slow, and so it will take just a moment to load the page, but actually that wasn't too bad. But you see, take a look now, we have a fragment, and this fragment is showing a web view of our Eastern Redbud in the emulator. Very nice, very handy. So that's what we have. A couple nice things that we can do is, first of all, one thing we couldn't do earlier with a list activity. List activity, we have to extend list activity, so we can't apply a common menu across our entire app. One thing we'll do in a later video is we will create a superclass of all of our managers, all of our manager activities, and that will define a menu. At this point, we're pretty much finished with the phone version. What we need to work on next is making a tablet-friendly version. So let's take a look at that in our next video. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you then.